Management has expressed little interest in making SSO, the main product, the game, the MMO, a more engaging game, opting instead to focus on creating more horses which drive revenue.
For the past couple of days, a lot of Star Stable players have been addressing this current controversy surrounding SSO. It all started when Star Stable Updates released a video about Glassdoor where she read a few employee reviews about what it was like working at SSO. I would like to take a moment to thank her for making this video, as it brought to light some serious issues within the company of SSO and how it affects the players actually negatively. This particular video has had a snowball effect in the community, making many players who have been die-hard fans of the game question SSO and voicing their upset with how SSO treats their employees and how they apparently don't really care about their players.
They're currently digging their own grave, and if they're not going to change the way they manage this game, it's literally going to die in a few years.
Now this is absolutely understandable, seeing as the video shows that SSO's focus is on horses and not on the game or the quests, because horses bring in revenue, quests and gameplay do not. Something a lot of players in the community have been feeling and have been concerned about for a very long time. Despite the fact that SSO's promise is there were two teams, it just kind of shows that even if there are, the quest team simply doesn't rate as high as the horse team, and their ideas to better the game have been tossed aside in favor of making more money. I really suggest to go watch this video, it is very interesting. But despite what you might think, this video was actually the final straw in a long line of problems growing in the community and SSO's lack of good responses and to those growing issues. Or rather, cookie-cutter responses of, "We hear your concerns." It has become a mantra in the SSO Facebook page, and rightfully people were getting frustrated. Can we please turn this into a meme though? I think it needs to be a meme, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a look at all the things that went wrong and which led to such an intense reaction from a community that had been, for a very long time, very positive for SSO. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is negative, and I'm sure that SSO still has its die-hard fans, but there is definitely a shift towards a more cynical view to the practices of SSO. Right, so let's dive into the video. There are a lot of problems in SSO, but the main problem starts and ends with horses. It is the core issue of this controversy. One of the main issues is the growing number of horses that are being pumped out every month. At first, horses were a monthly to bi-monthly occurrence, and oftentimes the following month was simply a second wave of skins for the horse that had released earlier. So we got around 6 to 8 horses a year, with a few magical horses thrown into the mix. This changed in around 2020 when they started shoving out all the skins at the same time and releasing a brand new horse every month. They also started releasing new skins every month, so that means we sometimes got 2 horses a month, one for the app, Star Stable Horses, and one for the game, Star Stable Online. But the problem wasn't the horses, it was the fact that the game itself wasn't being worked on. A quick comparison to 2017's and 2020's update, for example, will quickly showcase the problem. Let's look at the area that released in 2017. Mistfall, specifically the second update, shows the amount of actual content in the game. Compare and contrast to the new Wildwoods area, and we see a lot less content and far more promotion. This is where the frustration stems from. It seems as if SSO created Wildwoods, but simply cut out parts to release at later stages, which is why the updates are feeling lackluster and empty. Despite getting updates every week, the players feel that it's hollow, and I believe it's because they created the area and just chopped it up to release in chunks. They didn't really have good content to give us continuously. Now, we can certainly make the same argument about Mistfall, but what we can't say is that the updates were lackluster. There was a lot to do every week, not just a race, but a couple of races plus quests. But if you thought this was the only issue, you are very much mistaken. Another growing problem was, despite bringing out horses every month and being very active every week, they weren't updating the storyline. As of to date, we haven't seen an update to the main storyline in over 2 years, the last real update being to save Anne. Despite asking and begging them to continue, we just don't see anything happening with the main story. And this is the reason why a lot of us play, is the quests and stories and how they even sell their game. A magical adventure. You can't have much of an adventure if there's nothing to do. Furthermore, by releasing new areas consistently, a lot of other stories are being left behind, and we are a little worried that we're just not going to hear the end of those stories, because new stories are being told with each new area, which in turn have to get expanded upon, which are leaving older stories in the dust. There are numerous stories that have been left hanging, one of which is Markengast Castle. Everyone was rather excited to finally see the inside of this castle. It was teased in 2019, but as of to date, and this has been over a year and a half now, we just haven't seen any further progression in the story, and players became more and more frustrated. Now, this dip in content started at around 2019, where more horses were coming out, and of course less content. Even back then, the players were voicing their concerns, but SSO's response has always been the same old song and dance. Thank you for the input, we will share it with our team. This response made most people happy. It made it seem like SSO were listening to their players and that in future updates our ideas would be integrated into the game. However, as each update came and went, none of the ideas were being implemented and we only saw more and more horses. We realized they were only pretty words, and that same old response garnered more resentment than happiness from their players. Now, this continued for a very long time. Players would ask for a change, SSO promised to share it with the team, and nothing would happen, or rather only cosmetic changes would happen. SSO would, for example, bring in a specific horse we were asking for, or perhaps a halter or a specific gear set, but actual gameplay changes were few and far between, like for example with the carrying system. This happened in early 2021 when they announced they would be updating the carrying system. However, the update was poorly thought out and really only counted as a basic cosmetic change to the carrying system, with no real change to gameplay, which is what everyone was hoping for. Now, you can imagine the players weren't too happy, but this had become kind of par for the core. SSO would promise they would share an idea with the team, and we would either never see the idea come into fruition, or it was a letdown. Like for example, lead ropes. Despite promising for years that they would bring in lead ropes for halters, it has never come to fruition, but they still release new halters. Think through that logic, I don't know. In 2020, they released the Rune Runner and Pharaoh's Workshop, but upon scrutiny it becomes apparent that these quests were daily grinds that really offered nothing innovative, just busy work to keep players busy and something to point to when we say there is no content. These quests are repetitive and take months. I made an error in my previous video. It doesn't take 90 days, it takes around 110 to finish these quests. Imagine a daily in World of Warcraft, for example, like fishing or hunting, being not really a daily you can do for fun when you have nothing to do, but all that you can do in your main game. It's beyond aggravating, and a lot of players just threw in the towel for the Rune Runner. Seeing as on top of the daily grind, you actually got a model of a horse you most likely already owned, and the model is already outdated because the newer horses already look much better. So all that new players had to look forward to were really horses, and they were getting tired of it. Then the pandemic hit in 2020, and SSO's response suddenly went from "we hear your concerns" to "we're all working from home and it's very difficult." This became their go-to excuse, and although everyone was very accepting and understanding of it, it became very old, very fast, especially since SSO gave nothing to their players during the peak of the pandemic. There were no open days, no discounts, no free star coins to help everyone have a good time. No, instead they just went on the way they always did, where other games actually opened the gates and let players enjoy their games for free or gave away free stuff. SSO went on the way they always did, which most likely also started to breed some frustration and a certain amount of confusion. The thing was that SSO decided to use the pandemic as an excuse for why their updates were so poor. Furthermore, the pandemic was also sometimes used as an excuse for revenue being down, despite online games across the globe booming specifically due to the world crisis. SSO also boasted in 2 articles, not 1 but 2, that many new players have come to Jorvik, suggesting that yes, they were growing exponentially and they still fell back into the old "the pandemic is difficult for us" excuse. But then the bugs started rolling in. Although SSO is a reasonably buggy game, the updates were usually halfway solid, but as of the past few months, the bugs in the updates have become a little over the top. Not being able to get into areas, horses becoming spider creatures, rains becoming spaghetti, and it just kept getting worse, with the newest brand newest horse coming out, the Finn horse, having ears which apparently flip over when you jump it. And the bugs just kept coming. There was one bug that actually turned horses into spiders, and it just wasn't fixed for a very long time. However, as we will see later, this just wasn't true. But the most egregious problem that needed to be sorted were the horses' animations. So many horse animations were downright atrocious and sometimes broken, the Trackner being probably the most infamous of the bunch, but others also fell under this problem. The Curly, for example, has some serious animation issues, and they actually used that model for a magical horse. No idea why, but they took their time to fix all the bugs, and that's the thing, they always drag their feet, only managing to aggravate players further. So one thing SSO did last year was open a feedback concept. So essentially they would post a grayscale model of a horse and ask for community feedback. Needless to say, this was an excellent and awesome idea, and players jumped on this, sending ideas and feedback and all these wonderful suggestions for how the Frisian model in particular could be bettered. However, none of the suggestions were even taken into consideration, and the horse came out almost exactly as it looked in the grayscale. This same thing happened with the Gotland pony, where any feedback was simply ignored and the horse came out the way it did. The players were of course frustrated. Why give us the chance to give you feedback and then just ignore it? And as of the Finn horse, they did not ask any feedback with the model whatsoever. The recent issue has been compounded into the nothing updates, which essentially mean they have a Wednesday where literally nothing happens. One week they had the carrying system for the whole week, and another they put in a switch button so you could switch your magic horse's coat colors. And for next week we have new colors for favorite tack. Wow! Even the bigger updates were falling flat though. The newest Wildwoods update with all the quests only gave you 60 XP in total when it launched. They split the whole thing into 3 to 4 updates, showing they didn't have any content and had to stretch what they had over time. They didn't even include a race when the area first launched, which has been a staple in all previous area releases, except for Pandoria, where you can do absolutely nothing. Speaking of races, when SSO has nothing else to give, they drop races to keep players busy. At the beginning of 2021, SSO decided to can most of its events, leaving only about 4 or so left. This included Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day and Easter, all dumped and not replaced with anything. This was only announced after players badgered them after these events to ask why there wasn't an event. SSO finally announced they were dropping events because they wanted a space that was not connected to the real world. Now this is where I think the real turning point started. The one thing the older players who had at least finished the game still had were the events, and SSO, without replacing it with anything else, decided to drop events to focus on, well, you guessed it, more horses. The outcry was unanimous and the players were angry. Some tried to understand, but overall the players became disgruntled, already frustrated by poor updates, bugs and getting buried in horses. This seemed to be a tipping point. And if we consider it all under one veil, we suddenly understand why players are upset. Content is gutted, updates are becoming small and mundane, horses are being churned out 2 to 3 a month. Even when SSO asks for input, they ignore it. Overall input is ignored. Bugs aren't getting fixed or taking an eternity to get fixed. Updates are just buggier than normal. Focus is now on making the characters' models pretty, not bettering the game. Consistent use of the pandemic as an excuse, older players being left in the dust, and the main quest seeing no potential future updates. In all of this growing frustration, the video dropped like a badass beat, and it only served to create a violent, unanimous outcry among players. They were tired of the whole song and dance. SSO's response to most criticism has always been, we have 2 teams and we're a small team. Unfortunately, with the information that employees simply weren't given the chance to better the game, that the managers were only interested in how to make money, both these excuses can now be thrown out the window. Even if they have 2 teams, it doesn't matter, because only one of the teams actually matter. But SSO did actually respond in a comment. It surprised me to be honest, I really didn't think they would. But here it is, what they had to say. We'll go through it statement by statement. Thank you for expressing your concern about the well-being of us who work here at Star Stable. We are aware that some players recently discovered Glassdoor, which is a website where current and former employees anonymously review companies. While we take any feedback about our company seriously, the anonymous reviews on Glassdoor are just one source of information out of many. I'm going to pause there because I think this needs to be discussed. Although I do agree that there are certainly a lot of other websites where you can find information about your business, Star Stable, it is unfair to the people who have expressed frustration and concern while working at your company to sweep those concerns under the rug and simply say that what they're saying isn't true. It is very unfair to them. They deserve to have that voice to express their upset. And sweeping it under the rug is unfair and just shows how difficult it is for you to take responsibility for the decisions you have made and the actions that you have taken. That said, we have already been working hard on fixing some of the challenges raised surrounding technology and will continue to do so. Some time ago, as I stated before, you said that you bought new computers to fix the bug problems. What I am seeing and what I think actually makes a lot of sense, that your technology is so outdated that you cannot get in behind your game to fix certain problems. This is the reason why it takes so long for you to fix bugs or to make any sort of changes to the game. I was under the impression that it could have been you were simply stretched too thin, but I don't think that is the case. I think it is more you just simply cannot finish or fix your game because the people who work on that game either does not have the knowledge or, as your former employees say, the technology is completely outdated. This should be your main focus. Ease up on the horses and fix your technology so that you can give us the game that you promise us every week. We have a strong and happy culture of kindness at Star Stable, which is also constantly reflected in those very same reviews. I agree. But here's the thing. You may sit in a very beautiful garden, but it doesn't mean there aren't snakes around you. It doesn't matter how nice a place is. If it's fundamentally flawed, then after a while you will not be happy to work there anymore. It is your responsibility as a company not only to ensure the happiness of your people, but to ensure the creative freedom for those creators that you hire to express themselves. It is important for a creator, especially an artist, to be able to express those creative thoughts and ideas that is consistently breeding within them. If you stifle that creation, you create a situation where your employees will become very upset, as is proven by these anonymous reviews. We appreciate your concern for us, but we promise we are very happy to be a part of building the amazing world of Star Stable, and of course that includes more quests and even bigger future updates. Paper is patient. That is a very old saying in our country in South Africa, Star Stable. And if you continuously say that you are working on quests and you continuously tell us that you promise us updates and you promise us wonderful things, eventually we will stop believing you. Remember the old story of the boy who cried wolf? We are starting to get tired of the same old things that you say over and over again with no concept of how tired we are of hearing that same little song and dance over and over again. It is high time, Star Stable, that you start to listen to your players and not just deflect the whole time everything that we have to say. These are real, serious issues that they are trying to bring to your attention. They are trying to tell you over and over again they are unhappy with the situation that is currently in Star Stable, and you have a chance to fix it. But as long as you are pushing these sorts of responses, as long as you are ignoring what we are saying, your game will begin to fail. And this only blew the top off of something that was brewing for a very, very long time. So here's a response that I was rather surprised Star Stable also made. This is absolutely shocking, and I think we need to discuss this. So Sophie Isabel says, can you instead focus on the game and not pushing out horses with no end in sight. We already know that the horses only come to so frequently to generate money. That isn't put into the game development. Disappointed. This game could do so much, yet it fails. And here is Star Stable's response. We understand all of your frustration. With COVID and all of our team members having to work from home, we've had obstacles to overcome this year, but feel good about the projects we're working on and can't wait to share them with you all eventually. Using the pandemic as an excuse is unacceptable, especially when so many other games are going on just fine during this pandemic and actually booming as a result of the amount of players who are suddenly picking up online games to escape from the reality. If you need to step away, now here it gets really messed up. If you need to step away and take a break from the game, we completely understand and support you. We'll be here if you ever decide to come back and explore Jorvik with us. As you can see by the responses, the people weren't happy. It's overall just, and there's actually an O face, like holy mackerel. What were you thinking with this reply, Star Stable? What were you thinking? How do you chuck a person's upset that easily over your shoulder and pretend that we have nothing to be upset about? You are deflecting consistently everything that we have to say, pretending that our problems are non-issues. So the responses here were, focus on the game, not the horses. And then they say, no, I don't think the management behind SSO understands at all actually. That deal with it or leave mentality is completely unacceptable, and I can't believe you went there. I agree. We shouldn't have to step away from the game we love because of your lack of communication and updates. Well said. Maybe take a break from these tiny weekly updates and the horse making to dedicate more time to your story and quest team so we can actually get something substantial. Again, I agree. I honestly wouldn't even mind monthly or bi-monthly or bi-weekly updates if it allows the team more time for better content. It has been years. I'll give a little bit of a break because of COVID, but this is becoming ridiculous. So Star Stable replied as well. To clear up some confusion, our management doesn't decide about the horse's schedule release. We have a team who decide the schedule based on what we thought players would want, not because of the revenue. Oh, sorry Star Stable, this is a complete lie. You have told me, and I will show this right now. Here it is. Here it is. You said it to me personally, that you decide you bring out horses because it makes money. You said that directly to me. So don't tell me that you don't plan horses for revenue. Of course you do. This is your main income. So yes, you plan it around revenue. This is a lie, Star Stable. You are lying to us right now. Here is the proof of it. Here you tell me that it is difficult to talk about money and that the horses bring out. If you break the schedule, you will not be able to make the money you need to make to keep your servers open. We understand that it may not seem like the pandemic affected us or our efforts, but we have had a lot of obstacles to overcome that we feel proud of. I think you're situated in Switzerland or Sweden, and someone actually said that that area was not hit as hard with the lockdown as the rest of the world. Wow. Good grief. We greatly appreciate hearing your frustrations so we can continue to work on improving and think our efforts that we can't share with you all just yet will be eagerly anticipated. You are going to update the character models. That is what you're going to do. And that is all you're going to do. We are not going to see an update in the gameplay. We are not going to see dressage. We are not going to see anything that is going to get us excited. You are going to update the character models, and that is it. And that is not something that is going to benefit the gamers. You need to start working on your game. Update your technology, stop lying, and get your act together. I am trying to stay as calm as possible, but these comments are boiling my blood because it's unfair. This is not fair to your players. They are so patient and so kind and so considerate with how they tell you all these problems, and your response, Star Stable, is sorry, not sorry. Where did it go this wrong? Like I said at the top, SSO will not shut down. It just won't. It's a big game with a lot of money. But if it wants to keep making money, it needs to start changing its practices. SSO, if you did watch this, then listen for a moment. We are not angry that you're not listening to your employees. We're angry that you're not listening to us. We're angry that you don't care that we're upset and that you always have smart, meaningless answers to give us to all our concerns. Your best bet now is to be open with us, to tell us your future plans, to tell us honestly, not PR speak, about what is going on with the game. Tell us why the content is dropping, why you really had to drop events, and why you are pumping out so many horses and not focusing on quests. We are all willing to listen and understand. We've been doing it for years, but as long as you keep things consistently hidden from us, and you consistently pretend that nothing is wrong, then your player base will stop caring.